Sentence structure, sentence types. There are 4 kinds of sentence types: simple, compound, complex, and compound complex. Before we begin talking about that, we need to discuss elements of every single sentence. Every sentence has a subject and a predicate. For example, Mary plays tennis. Mary is the subject, and the predicate is everything else. In this case, plays tennis. Simple sentences have one subject and one predicate. They are also known as independent clauses, meaning that they are a complete idea that can stand alone. So, for example, here's a simple sentence. We went to San Antonio yesterday. We is your simple subject, which is also a pronoun. Went to San Juan is your complete predicate. Notice went is the verb, so your predicate will usually begin with your verb. Mary plays tennis is a simple sentence. It has one subject and one predicate. Now sometimes you will have a sentence that has a compound subject, so you have 2 subjects performing the action. In this case, Tom and Mary play tennis. This is still a simple sentence, however, Tom and Mary becomes a compound subject. You can also have a compound predicate. For example, Tom and Mary play tennis and swim. You see how they have 2 verbs here. 2 actions are being performed by Tom and Mary. Okay, Tom and Mary play tennis. Tom and Mary play tennis and swim. But these are still considered simple sentences. The compound sentences. A compound sentence has more than one part that can stand alone, meaning one or more independent clauses. Independent clauses are connected by coordinating conjunctives, conjunctive adverbs, and or semicolons. For example, we went to San Antonio and most of us danced all night. If you take and the comma out of this sentence, you have 2 independent clauses. We went to San Antonio is a complete thought, an independent clause. Most of us danced all night is also an independent clause because it is a complete thought. We went to San Antonio and most of us danced all night. Let's look at how this is broken up into. We, the subject, the verb is went, to San Antonio, a prepositional phrase. We have a coordinating conjunction, and another subject, most of us, another verb, and another modifying phrase, danced all night. Compound sentences use coordinating conjunctions. Your coordinating conjunctions are pretty simple. It's your fanboys. You start with a subject and a predicate, you add a comma, a fanboys, and another subject and a predicate. For example, Tom swims, comma, and Mary plays tennis. So this is a compound sentence because you have a subject and a predicate, which is an independent clause. Tom swims is a complete thought and a complete sentence. You're joining it with the fanboys. Mary plays tennis, which is also a complete thought. Just as a reminder, your coordinating conjunctions, also known as fanboys, are for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. Anytime that you have a compound sentence that you are joining with the fanboys, you must put a comma in front of the fanboys. Sometimes that has been taught that it's optional. It's actually not. It became optional in journalism when they were trying to have room for layout of storylines in newspapers and in magazines. But in proper English, you always have to have the comma. So, compound sentence with a coordinating conjunction. Tom swims and Mary plays tennis. Tom swims is the first independent clause, and Mary plays tennis is the second independent clause. And again, always place that comma before your coordinating conjunction when you're joining 2 independent clauses. Compound sentence with conjunctive adverbs. Conjunctive adverbs, and I will post this list separately on the site, on the class website, make your writing sound more interesting. It brings it up a notch, so to speak. All of these words, if you put them in front of an independent clause, it still stays an independent clause. For example, Bob is handsome. Moreover, he is rich. Anytime you use a conjunctive adverb, you have to put a semicolon before it and a comma after it. So clause 1 is Bob is handsome. That is a complete thought. Clause 2 is moreover, he is rich. Okay, that is also an independent clause. Conjunctive adverbs float. Conjunctive adverbs are sometimes called floating adverbs because they can be positioned at the beginning, in the middle, or at the end of a clause. So, for example, Bob is handsome, moreover, he is rich. Bob is handsome, he is, moreover, rich. Bob is handsome, he is rich, moreover. Probably most people would prefer the first example here as far as in sentence style, but these other ones are equally correct as long as you punctuate them properly. So take note of how these are punctuated. Any conjunctive adverb that goes in these sections would be punctuated the same way. Semicolons are used to make a compound sentence when two conditions are met. First, the ideas must be closely related, and the ideas must be expressed in independent clauses. Okay, for example, Tom has benefited from his exercise program. He is slim and energetic. So these are two independent clauses. They could stand alone. You could make two sentences out of these easily with just a period here and a capital letter here. But because these two ideas are closely related, you might just want to do a semicolon. And notice when you use a semicolon, if the ideas are closely related, you need no form of a conjunction here. Complex sentences. A complex sentence is formed with a dependent clause and an independent clause. A dependent clause cannot stand on its own, but an independent clause can stand on its own. So what makes a clause dependent? Literally one word, and that is called the subordinating conjunction. So for example, since my friends and I wanted to get a tan, we went to the beach yesterday. The subordinating conjunction here is since. If you take the phrase, since my friends and I wanted to get a tan, you need more information in order for that to make sense. What the word since does here is it makes your understanding of that dependent clause, it depends on what the next independent clause is. So since my friends and I wanted to get a tan, we went to the beach yesterday. Since again is the subordinating conjunction. Since my friends and I wanted to get a tan, it cannot stand alone. This is your dependent clause. Subject here is we, predicate, went to the beach yesterday. Notice we went to the beach yesterday is an independent clause, so it can stand on its own. A complex sentence has a subject and a predicate, a subordinating conjunction, for example, even though, and another subject and predicate. So it looks a lot like a compound sentence. The only difference is the function of the subordinating conjunctive in the middle. So for example, Bob is popular even though he is ugly. Okay? You do not need a comma between popular and even though. You need no punctuation here at all. So here's a list of the most common subordinating conjunctions. And these can also be found in your Kersner and Mandel text. So here's the sentence. Bob is popular even though he is ugly. If you take this clause, Bob is popular, it stands on its own. It's an independent clause. But if you take even though he is ugly, it becomes a dependent clause because even though is a subordinating conjunction. Even though he is ugly is not a complete thought. It is not an independent clause. We have our independent clause, no punctuation, dependent clause. So by moving even though to the front, we make Bob is popular a dependent clause. Even though Bob is popular does not make sense on its own until you have the independent clause, he is ugly. Even though Bob is popular, comma, he is ugly. If the dependent clause comes first, you always put a comma after it before the independent clause. Compound complex sentences. This type of sentence has more than one part that can stand alone and at least one that cannot. So two independent clauses and a dependent clause. These sentences, as you learn to write them, will make your writing more sophisticated. It will bring it up to that college level writing that we're looking for. Since we wanted to get a tan, my friends and I went to the beach yesterday and we relaxed in the sunshine. So we begin with, since we wanted to get a tan, my friends and I went to the beach yesterday and we relaxed in the sunshine. Since is a subordinating conjunction, so that makes this part a dependent clause. Since we wanted to get a tan, and you could put a comma here, my friends and I went to the beach yesterday. My friends and I went to the beach yesterday is an independent clause. It makes sense all by itself. Add a comma, a coordinating conjunction, and another independent clause. We relaxed in the sunshine. So look at this one. Stephen is popular because he is good looking, but he is not very happy. So we've got 3 different clauses being linked together with conjunctions, and that makes your writing sound more collegiate. For additional information, consult Part 12, Chapters 46 and 47 of your Cursell and Mandel's text, and Appendix B.